I always thought that happiness sounded quiet, like the rustling of a paper cup when he suddenly appeared outside my office with a latte. How you like it? Like the rustling of his jacket when we walked along the embankment until midnight and discussed who we were as children and why we are now afraid of leaving a taxi at the wrong time. Evan laughed so hard that my cheekbones cramped and knew how to listen, so that my words became thicker, more serious than I planned. We had this feeling that one big warm sweater was thrown on both of us, and we never got out of it. And then the sweater turned out to have rules. Rule number 1, I'm very private. He said it easily like, I don't eat cilantro. Private means no photos together. Why post all this? Let it be ours. Private means not going to the bar near his house because they have friends there and then He didn't finish the sentence, just making an indefinite gesture with his palm, like erasing an extra stroke from the air. Private means not crossing paths with his friends. They're toxic, pounding you with questions, and now's not the time. Private means his phone is always face down, and the brightness is turned up as if he's shy of the light. At first I nodded. I'm not one of those who shout about love. Leaning on the hood, I knew that people get burned and go into the shadows. We talked about the past. It was general, indistinct. There were strange stories I'll tell you later. Later did not come, but there was something else. Long walks, his fingers on my wrist when the rain ran across the road. Notes, success at the interview. On my refrigerator, jokes about my dislike of raisins. I had my own life with friends and family, and in it he occupied a place like a well-fitted shelf. Not flashy, but irreplaceable. Everyone loved him. He reciprocated them, just enough to please, and carefully moved them aside when the conversation turned to his circle. You'll meet me sometime, I promise, he said, smiling with his eyes. With Mom? Of course, she's wonderful. Just not now, she's going through a tough time. With the guys? Yes, it's just a hellish work season. Everyone's on edge, they'll think the wrong thing. Slickly, softly, without conflict. Tenderness was added to every word, like syrup to coffee, and I drank. I would probably have kept drinking if the syrup hadn't been accompanied by tiny ice cubes falling into the glass. We're sitting on the steps near the train station, eating falafel from paper boxes, and he suddenly tenses up, turns away, as if he'd seen someone. Let's go through the courtyards down there in short. Don't hold my hand here, okay? I have a colleague nearby, he's sarcastic, and this okay glues you to it because you understand. People are uncomfortable sometimes. When I first suggested, let's take a picture of the two of us, not for display, just to have it, he quietly laughed. Do you really want to polish the evidence? The word evidence was said cheerfully, but it is rough, scratchy. I joked, I want to polish the memory. He kissed my temple. Ours is already shiny. 10th month I have in my notebook, Sunday, lunch at Mom's Evan? He agrees, comes with flowers. He turns my niece into an astronaut by putting a colander on her head. Grandpa asks him about 80s music, and Evan knows names and laughs at my school stories with just the right amount. He's good. And I see how Mom, after washing in the bathroom, whispers to me, I like the way he looks at you. I smile back and find myself asking myself, how does his mom look at me? And from this question inside becomes empty, like a room after guests. One day, like in a movie, only without the soundtrack, I'm walking down the street with a bag of oranges, and two people walk past on the sidewalk. He's with someone. I flinch, and I have this weird second when I'm like on the outside. I see myself, I see him, and I see how the first thing he does is turn his face away, hide his smile, zip it up like a lid. Hello? I say he. Quickly, a hello? I'll call you back. Into the air, not to me. And it's a colleague. We stand in the heavy air and the colleague nods and Evan shrugs, the universal gesture for not now. Then 3 voices. Sorry, are you scared? Well, you know how closed off I am. They're mean I'm protecting you. He protected so much that they stopped seeing me. My home is his footprints, his toothbrush that disappeared one morning because my friend is coming over today. I'll pick it up later. His sweatshirt on the chair, let him live here, and then one day, it moves out without warning. His nightly messages, are you sleeping? And my habit of not pressing with questions, because pressure often breaks. I didn't want to break, I wanted to save, but the question grew like a splinter that you can't catch with your fingers, and one evening I got it out. We were sitting at my place. The food was getting cold, the series was paused, the faces on the screen were frozen in grimaces, and I said, I don't want to be a secret, Evan. I don't need likes. I need to feel like you can be proud of out loud that I'm not. If anything, we're just colleagues. He made a pff, not rudely, more like tiredly, but the puff filled the room like smoke. He looked at me across the table, as if through glass in which a lamp is reflected. We are so good. Why destroy what people think? I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about external noise. I don't want the story mode to dictate to us. Stories don't dictate to me. I said. Feeling dictates to me. My family knows you. My friends know you. I don't hide you. But you hide me. You hide me from your life. I'm not hiding. He raised his palms. I'm protecting. From whom? He froze for a split second. It was enough for something inside me to click, not an answer. He didn't know who it was from, or did he know? I've had a bad experience, he said, and I want it my way. No pressure, no signs. Is that so hard to understand? Almost a year, Evan, I said quietly. It's hard to understand how much longer? He sighed, turned to the window, rested his forehead against the frame, and then sat back down, this time with an even voice. If you care so much about photos and captions, maybe we should stop. You're setting conditions. I don't like conditions. I set boundaries, I said. Boundaries are not conditions. It's together or no way. He grinned, not maliciously. Just the way people grin when they think you're overdoing it. Together is what we have here. He knocked on the table. You want celebratory fanfare? There won't be any. That's not what I'm talking about. And if you're ready to throw away what we have because of this, that's your choice. I felt the warmth from my chest go into my palms, as if I were holding snow. I thought that I don't know how to give ultimatums. But it wasn't an ultimatum, it was air, I said. If we can't be together in public, I can't be together at all. He looked at me for a long time, as if he was photographing me as a keepsake. He said, "You're making a mistake," and left quietly, without slamming the door, without a word. His empty cup remained on the table, the circle from it like the mark of a ring on a finger that's not there. The following days he became transparent. Short messages, calls, inconvenient plans, we'll see. I automatically told my friends how he was and heard my words like other people's opinions were divided into two teams. Some said, "You're right, love is not a basement." Others reproached softly, "You can be happy in private. This is not about that." I nodded, but inside me the same question kept ringing. Who is he really protecting? Me or himself from me? On Sunday I was cleaning the kitchen when my phone vibrated with an email. Not a text message, but an email to the email I check once a week. Sender, Lena, a mutual friend of ours from the same company through which Evan and I first crossed paths. Subject, haha, look at the corporate bureaucracy. I opened it, expecting another meme about the do not lean signs. Inside was a forwarded invitation from HR. Annual award ceremony Friday, 7 p.m. Orbita Hall. Dress code, cocktail. Come with your partner. We'd love to meet you. I reread the last line 3 times, and below is a note from Lena. He said that they have a strict no+1 policy. Apparently, not this time. Will you go? And at that moment, for the first time, I felt not resentment, but clarity, pure as the December air, and along with clarity, fear. If the invitation exists, then impossible was a fiction. So it's not a matter of principle. What then? I sat at the table, and the letter seemed to run a cold finger down my spine. Come with your partner. We'd love to meet you. It was written in black and white, without asterisks or footnotes, without subject to availability or for spouses only. I zoomed in, as if the words would change at 150%. They didn't. I forwarded the letter to Lena. Is this for everyone? Lena responded almost immediately like people respond to memes. Yeah, every year I thought you'd come together. Have you thought of a dress yet? I have a blue dress hanging in my closet, the same one I once wore while spinning in front of the mirror and heard Evan say, "Wow." And then, "It's a shame I have nowhere to put it." I closed my email and spent a few seconds just looking at the black screen of my laptop, which reflected my kitchen. A cup, a towel, a children's magnet with a dolphin on the refrigerator. Everything was normal, except for me. I suddenly felt like a stranger in this scene. I dialed Evan. The call took longer than usual. "Hi," he replied, clearing his throat. There was mourning and other things in his voice. "Hi, listen, I was forwarded an invitation to your ceremony. It says with a partner. I was thinking." I paused so as not to sound like an inspector checking off checkboxes. "Maybe this is a good occasion?" He chuckled without laughing. "Oh, that's what they always write marketing. In fact, the hall will be crowded, people with families. Yes, but they don't invite newcomers, and..." He softened his voice. "I still most likely won't go. I hate this circus, but you said that you have strictly no+1. And in the letter, I was saying what usually happens." He interrupted softly. "Listen, don't get hung up on the wording. This isn't what's going to solve our problem. It's just a corporation. I don't want to drag us into this. Not us. Drag." The words stood one after another like bricks in a wall. I looked out the window. 2 stripes remained on the glass after the rain, as if someone had run their fingers over it and stopped. "Okay," I said, although it wasn't okay. "I just thought I'd ask." "Thank you for asking," he replied. "Let's call each other this evening?" We didn't call each other. In the evening, he was delayed, and I opened the letter again and saw a button in blue. confirm participation, and next to it, a small link, invite +1. It led to a form with 2 fields, employee name and guest name. Below them, a line in small letters. Badges will be ready at the registration desk. I didn't click, I just took a screenshot, as people do who don't want to argue but want to remember. All week, he was like a radio station with interruptions. How are you? Busy. Dinner on Friday? We'll see. I began to guess his "we'll see" in advance. It came where I already had "come on" my tongue. Mom asked if everything was okay with us. I answered that it's just a period. Lena sent a photo of a dress, a light icon. I answered with a smiley and a feeling as if there was a stone in my stomach. On Thursday evening, I called Lena myself. Tell me honestly, will you and your partners come? Of course, I've already got my husband on board. Why are you hesitating? Evan said he won't go. He's on the list of speakers. She said so easily that my eyes darkened for a second. He has the project of the year, doesn't he? Wait. Lena put the phone down, then came back. Yes, he's on the program. Block 2, presentation of the word, Evan M. What's wrong? I was silent. The word program cut through the air. The pieces in my head clicked harmoniously, like in a construction set. I hate this circus. I probably won't go. Strictly without +1. I heard my own, but it sounded dull, like a voice from the next room. Will you go? Lena asked. I don't know, I said. Probably yes. Probably number. All right. We said goodbye. I put the phone on the table and went to the closet. The blue dress hung like a sign. I ran my hand over the fabric. It was cool. On Friday, the office emptied earlier than usual. Everyone was dragging jackets in cases and boxes of shoes somewhere. I turned off the computer and went home. On the way, I bought a thin black hair tie, in case I wanted to be noticeable without being noticed. At 6, I was standing in front of the mirror. My hair was in a low ponytail. I was wearing lip balm instead of lipstick. I had a coat on and a badge in my bag in case security asked. I had an old pass to Orbita from the last conference. No, I wasn't planning on barging in and making a scene. I wanted to see. This verb suddenly seemed the main one. I thought there would be a crowd at the entrance. There it was, booming, laughing with the smell of perfume and fresh paper. At the reception desk, a printer crackled, spitting out plastic cards with names. A girl in a black dress asked, "Employee? Guest?" The ribbons on the badges were different colors. For employees, dark blue; for guests, light with a silver stripe. I stood a little to the side, near a column where the light was softer. Lena sent, "I'll be 10 minutes late, save me a place." I responded with a smiley. My hands were warm, but my back was cold, as if I was standing by an open door. People were passing by, women in shiny clothes, men in identical jackets. Sometimes those same partners were with them, a little lost in the corporate noise, but happy to be held by the hand and introduced. "This is Masha. This is Igor. This is my man." I hardly looked at anyone in the face until I heard a familiar intonation. Not a voice, but a turn of the head, a characteristic exhalation before the phrase, "Evan." He walked in with a tall guy from his department, whom I had seen in Lena's office. Evan was wearing a dark suit that I hadn't seen before. His shoulders sat evenly on him, as if someone had straightened them with a ruler. He was smiling, the smile he has for the stage, a little wider than in life, and with a dimple that I really loved. My heart didn't jump, it froze, like a reflex, when you see a wave and understand that it is not about you. Yet he approached the counter. He approached the height. The girl asked, "Last name?" "M," he said, leaning slightly. "Is the guest with you?" The girl asked. Evan didn't even turn his head. He just shook his head. "No." She handed him one of the dark blue badges. He threw the ribbon around his neck. He turned and looked around the room the same way you would look around a cafe before choosing a table. His gaze slid over the column I was standing behind, but didn't linger. I thought, I wish he'd just find me with his eyes. And I answered, "He's not looking." I was about to move on when I heard a familiar laugh at the counter, slightly ringing like a spoon on glass. A girl in a light dress with a jacket thrown over her shoulder approached. I didn't know her face, but I recognized her gait, confident, springy, one of those who enter as if they were expected. She smiled at the girl at the reception and said, "Am I late? Guest with an M?" The receptionist scrolled through the list on the tablet, nodded, and asked for the document. The girl handed over the driver's license. I caught a glimpse of the name on the plastic, as if someone else's fate had winked at me. Nora K. The heart moved, not a jolt, but as if it stumbled. Evan turned around for a second, not at me, but at her. His smile became softer than at the counter. My eyelashes became hot. I blinked so as not to blur the picture. The receptionist put a light ribbon and a card on the table. Guest, Nora K. The girl put on the badge, looked at Evan, and somehow in a homely way straightened his collar. I pulled my scarf down to make it easier to breathe. The room became a little louder. The host started saying something about the year of breakthroughs. The crowd swayed towards the entrance to the large hall. Evan leaned toward Nora. "Shall we go?" "Sure," she replied. They moved towards where the light was already flaring up. I quickly took a step back so that they wouldn't pass within a meter. She passed close by. She smelled of something citrusy, expensive. Her palm appeared on his arm, not on his back, like in the movies, but just below his elbow, carefully as if they had been walking like that for a long time. He didn't pull his hand away, and suddenly everything turned out to be in this didn't pull away. I stood there as they were swallowed up by the crowd. Then I turned to the reception desk and asked the girl, pretending to be looking for someone, "Excuse me, can I watch the program? I have a friend performing." The girl smiled and handed over the piece of paper. In block 2, in black, it said, "Award, Project of the Year, Words. Evan M. Thanks, Team Plus, Special Guest." I ran my finger over these 2 words like a marked special guest. Lena wrote, "I'm coming. Where are you?" I typed, "Here to the right of the columns," and erased. Typed, "I'll tell you later." Erase, pressed, camera. Took a picture of the hall and sent her just a picture. Without words, the host asked everyone to take their seats. The light in the foyer became softer. I could still leave. I could take my coat, go outside, breathe in the cold, and decide everything without this performance. But in the back of the hall, under the white spotlights, they had already put the microphone on the stand, and suddenly it started to knock in my head. If he says, "Thank you to my girlfriend," who will he say thank you to? Warm light pulled people into the large hall, the kind that makes skin look softer than it actually is and makes smiles wider. On the stage there was a screen with blue stripes, like the screensaver of an old music player. The host joked about KPI, and laughter echoed in waves rolling down the rows. I settled on the edge, on the first level of the amphitheater, by the aisle where you can leave without touching anyone's dress with your elbow. Lena never showed up, stuck in traffic getting into a taxi, she wrote, and I caught myself thinking that I didn't want her to see me right now, in the most ordinary blue, with my hands folded the way people do when they're trying not to show they're shaking. Evan and Nora sat near the center. I saw only profiles, his jawline familiar because I had kissed that curve. Hers, the high shine of her hair piled high at the nape of her neck and a tiny mole at the base of her neck. He leaned over and said something in her ear. She smiled, not showing her teeth, just briefly, like you smile at your own. There was a glint of light on her left hand, where the metals gleamed thinly under the dome of light. I blinked and told myself not to look there. Of course not there. At first, people I didn't know spoke. One talked about the Latin American market, pronouncing upside as confidently as if it were the name of a sea. Another thanked the gods and the accounting department. A third cried and laughed at the same time, holding a glass cube in her hands. I listened out of the corners of my eye, reading the familiar corporate ritual, where every speech is about the team and meaning, no matter how many hours of overtime it entails. Then, Block 2, Project of the Year, appeared on the screen. The hall became denser. The presenter allowed himself a half-second pause, and this half-circle of silence vibrated in the ribs. For the courage to cut off the excess and leave the main thing, for something that took off where many fell, the host smiled at the audience. For a product that is already being talked about throughout the industry. Project of the Year, Evan M.'s team. The applause hit him briskly. He stood up, easily, like a man whose body trusts the stage. Along the way, he shook someone's hands, made thank you with his eyebrows. Nora stood for a second to let him pass, gently touched his jacket with her fingers, a gesture casual and very familiar. Her ring caught the light again. I noted it as a fact, like the air temperature. He put that same smile on his face, a little wider than for me, a little more generous, like a festive portion of ice cream. He stood at the microphone for a second, and his voice became lower, more collected. "Hello." He looked not at the camera, not at the presenter, along the rows, as if gathering us with his gaze. We worked very hard sometimes. Honestly, I didn't know if it would work out. On some days it seemed better to pack a backpack and go to the islands. But then there were people who said, "Take one more step." He turned to the sector where his team was sitting. "Thank you, you are those one more step," applause. He waited for it to die down and continued. "And also, the rules of this evening are to thank family and loved ones. He looked down at the floor for a second, as if collecting the wording. "I have always been careful with publicity. You know me. The laughter in the audience is good-natured. But there is a person who, it seems, understood my language before I did. A person with whom we had many long conversations in the morning and at night. A person who knows how to be silent in such a way that this is also support. He turned his gaze to the audience to where Nora was sitting and the light itself stretched in that direction, like a dog that knows where to run. Nora, he said, and her name sounded so familiar, as if he said it out loud every day. Thank you for being there when I was unbearable, for telling me stop when I forget where the break is, and for believing. He smiled and added, I don't know how to say big words, but this time let it be loud. Pause. This is my special guest. He gestured with his hand, inviting the cameraman to catch her in the frame. The camera obediently found Nora. Her face was closer on the screen than I, and it seemed she would have liked. She was a little embarrassed, looked down, then smiled. That same homely smile. It flashed on her left hand once more, and now there was no need to pretend that I didn't notice. The audience reacted to the host's remark. Maybe it's special not only today? Ooh. Laughter. Oh, from the back rows, Evan spread his hands as if saying, we'll see. The host joked about waiting for news. The spots of light on the stage became warmer. For a second I sat straight, like a disheveled statue. At that moment it was surprisingly calm. Not the silence that is like cotton wool in your ears, but another, like in winter on an empty street when you hear your own steps. I thought, this is also an answer. He could have said, friend, colleague, mentor. He could, as he knows how, slip into the wording, but he chose to call, not me. He also said 3 more correct things about inclusion, about opportunities for the young, about mistakes that teach. Then the host called the team onto the stage. They handed out glass rectangles and lined everyone up according to their height for a photo. Nora looked at him the way people look at their things, not in the sense of my property, but my household item, beloved, familiar, standing in its place. And he, coming down from the stage, ran his hand along the row of seats, mechanically, as if checking where everything was, and stopped at her knee. A slight movement, and his fingers lay on her fingers. 2 seconds, enough for a picture. My phone vibrated twice in my bag. I didn't take it out because I didn't know who I was afraid to read. Lena, who has all the words, or him. When the lights in the hall were slightly dimmed to the get ready for the bar level, I took out my phone. On the screen was a message from Evan, which had arrived 20 minutes ago, right before Block 2. Arriving home late. How are you? And then, sorry, a lot of fuss. I looked at these 2 rectangles of text and thought that sometimes the truth is not someone's version of events, but a simple breakdown by time. Who is where at the moment of how? The company's camera had already managed to post a photo in a closed channel with the caption, Project of the Year, we are proud. The next story is a boomerang. Evan, Svet, a special guest, cups of Coca-Cola in the host's hand. Some kind guy from their SMM posted a photo a little later in the general corporate Instagram. Congratulations to Evan M. and his team. In the photo, Evan with a special guest. Accounts tagged. In tags, I saw Nora. She has an open profile. The first 3 photos. The sea, a book, a cup of coffee. The fourth, a view from the balcony, painfully familiar. I saw these shimmering lanterns along the river from the other side of the window, from Evan's living room, when we ordered sushi and argued about who would wash the rice cooker. Lena finally got through. I went out into the foyer. The smell of champagne was already spreading there. Foil rustled, glass clinked. Where are you? Noise in the receiver. I took my badge. They put me in the gallery. So boring. Oh, by the way, he was on fire, right? Did you see his speech? I saw it, I said. Lena, yeah? She spoke quickly as always. Did you know Nora? I said the name calmly, as if asking for a cookie recipe. Pause. Is that Nora? Cautiously. Listen, I saw her a couple of times in the elevator. Each time I thought, well, finally it stopped being a monastery. He told me, she stopped. Sorry, I didn't know that. That I am a monastery? I tried to smile, but my voice came out flat. Everything is fine. Wait. Lena suddenly switched to the tone in which people speak when a chandelier falls through. Are you alone now? Yes. I'm coming to you. No need. I looked at the audience. Really, I just need to see it to the end. Are you sure? Yes, I said. Until the end. We hung up. I was standing by the column, watching people line up for canapes. How funny those who don't drink held their glasses of mineral water. Someone brushed my shoulder. Turning around, I caught the eye of a girl from their department. I'd seen her a couple of times at friends' birthdays. She recognized me and saw me looking at the stage, and she looked there herself, and her eyes gasped, like when crumpled paper is suddenly straightened out. Oh, she said quietly, sincerely, and bit her lip. If anything, I'm here. This I'm here suddenly turned out to be more important than all the I protect that I had been fed for almost a year. The music changed to something general, rhythmic. People reached out to the side halls. I didn't move. I took off a thin chain from my neck, wound it around my finger habit to keep my hands busy. He and she came out of the side door. The host seemed to have given them 5 minutes of peace. There was no one around except for two girls with volunteer badges who were carrying away a box of microphones somewhere. Evan was holding a glass rectangle in his hands, like you hold a baby, carefully and slightly, as if afraid to drop it. Nora was saying something to him, her lips read proud. He nodded, grateful. At that moment, he looked up and saw me. I never thought that a look could be heard. It was like a click on metal. At first, helpless recognition, like a man who was led from a dark room into the light. Then, an instant assembly of the face. A smile. Everything is fine. The corners of the eyes. We'll talk. The jaw twitched slightly, and this movement gave out more than 100 explanations. He took a step to the side, just enough to nod at me, barely noticeable. His face was asking, "Not now." I looked at Nora. Nora noticed him looking at me, and she looked away too. She smiled politely like people smile when they meet a friend of friends and don't remember the name. "Hello," she said first. "I think we've met before." There was no bitterness or tang in her voice, a pure professional, "Be nice." "No," I answered. "We haven't seen each other." Evan took a breath as if about to jump into the water. "This is," he began. "Colleague," Nora helped. "From that project where you made a prototype? You showed me." She turned to me. "You are great?" I nodded. Everything inside became viscous, like honey, viscous and opaque. My God, how easily and gracefully a lie is constructed when two people believe in it, or pretend to. "We need to talk," Evan said more quietly, almost without a sound from his lips, only to me. "I'll explain." I looked at him and realized that I don't want explanations. I want facts, and for the facts to be put on the table, not just by the two of us. "Of course," I said out loud. "Let's talk together." Fear flickered in his eyes, fleeting as a flash of light. He opened his mouth, cup covered with his palm, and then closed it. Nora turned to him. "Is everything okay?" He nodded too quickly. "At the coffee counter," I added, as if I was setting up a work meeting. "In 5 minutes." I turned around and walked away. Not because I was brave, because I realized that if I left now, this scene would not be the last shot. It would become a habit. I stopped at the counter where the barista, a boy with an earring in his ear, was cheerfully frothing milk as if such a noise could knock down someone else's drama. The phone vibrated again, a message from the corporate account. "You were tagged in a photo." I opened it on the screen. Evan, a glass rectangle, light, and next to it, Nora, with guest written in large letters on her badge below, "Congratulations, lights, proud." And above, the tag at Norik --. Her profile was open. I poked into the stories. A boomerang from the audience. Dark blue light. The caption, "So proud, a heart next." A close-up of her hand on his jacket. A transparent sticker, "Yes." My fingers felt numb, like I'd been holding them under cold water for too long. I switched to message and wrote to her. "Hi Nora, can I ask you one question? Who are you to Evan?" A second, read 3 dots. The answer came faster than he usually got. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. His girlfriend is soon, I hope a bride." I didn't sit down, I didn't drop my phone. I just realized that the air in my lungs suddenly became thick like cream, and the barista handing me a cappuccino said, "Careful, it's hot." I turned my head and saw them walking towards me. He had the face of a man trying to enter a burning room without getting burned. She had that same soft smile. And at that moment I realized that 3 of us was exactly the number in which the truth should be heard. They walked slowly, the way people walk who don't suspect that there is no continuation of their familiar scene ahead. Evan carried his glass rectangle under his arm like a trophy, and Nora kept her hand on his elbow. In the light from the foyer, her ring flashed again, and it was no longer a small detail that I tried to ignore. Now it was like a sign with the words, "Look here, remember," written underneath it. I stood at the counter, holding a cardboard cup of coffee and feeling the warmth from it sink into my fingers. It was the only warmth that felt real right now. "Well," Nora said, coming up, "let's go." Her voice was even, without curiosity or challenge, like that of a person who had come to close the matter. Evan was the first to speak. "Listen." He looked at me, and for the first time that evening, I saw in his eyes not the usual calm down, but something closer to panic. "Everything is not as you think." "I wonder," I said quietly. "What do I think?" Nora looked from him to me and back again. "I think," she said calmly, "I can guess. But let's be honest, without these games." "Honestly," I repeated, and it was like a door slammed shut in my head. "Okay. Honestly, Evan and I have been dating for almost a year." Nora's eyebrows twitched, but she didn't turn to face him. She continued to look at me. "That's not true," Evan said quickly, looking at her now. "She's exaggerating. We met, yes, but that was a long time ago. Before you." "Before me?" I asked. "And when did this before end? Yesterday morning when you were drinking coffee in my kitchen? Or 2 weeks ago when we were choosing where to go for my birthday. I didn't raise my voice. Every word was like a step, slow but audible. Nora turned away from me to him. This is true. Evan raised his hands as if he could physically hold the situation together. I didn't want you. It's all because I just don't like— You don't like it? I interrupted. You don't like being caught? Or you don't like explaining why you have two parallel Wes? People walked past. Some looked away in embarrassment. Some slowed down. The bustle of the foyer became the background, a noise that only emphasized the silence between us. Nora took a breath in and out, as if she had decided something inside herself. Then she took her hand out of his elbow. You know, she told him, I could believe any of your versions if it weren't for one but. She took out her phone, opened the messages, and showed the screen. This is from Lena. I've crossed paths with her a couple of times. She wrote to me an hour ago. Your speech is fire. It's just a shame his girlfriend heard it. Nora put the phone away. It looks like you've been keeping us both in the shadows. Evan closed his eyes as if he wanted to erase everything with one movement of his eyelids. I tried, he began. You tried to make sure we never met, I said, but you chose the stage, and I'm glad you did. Nora and I met eyes. There was no anger in her eyes, only fatigue and some strange relief. I don't think there's anything more for either of us to do here, she said. Do you agree? I agree, I replied. We turned around almost simultaneously, leaving him standing with the trophy in his hands and a face that was a mixture of confusion and something like belated remorse. The air outside was cold and clear. Nora stopped at the stairs. I don't know what he promised you, she said, but I hope you'll stop trusting those who are afraid to say your name out loud. And I hope that you will stop believing those who can express gratitude beautifully under the light, I replied. We exchanged a short, dry smile and went our separate ways. At home, I took off my coat, put my coffee on the windowsill, and looked out the window for a long time at the lights reflecting in the river. The phone was on the table. A few messages from Evan. We need to talk. Please answer. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid to hear excuses, but because they no longer made sense. This year he got his project of the year and I got my project, which started with long walks and coffee near the office and ended with me learning not to agree to be someone's shadow. I took my phone, opened my contacts, and deleted his number. No drama, no screenshots, no look what I did. Just erased it, like wiping a board after an unnecessary formula. The room became quiet, and in that silence was what I had been missing all year. My own place where no one is afraid to call me their own, and that was the real point.